Doug Ford says he's making homes affordable again by cutting taxes and slashing development fees. Sounds great, right? Less red tape, cheaper houses, everyone wins. But here's the thing. The average GTA home still costs over $1 million. Builders are warning about slowing construction, and critics say Ford's plan could actually make things worse. Home sales are slipping, affordability is collapsing. So, is Doug Ford really fixing Ontario's housing crisis or just shifting the bill from builders to you? Let's start with where things stand. According to the Canadian Real Estate Association, home sales across Canada dipped 1.7% in September. That snapped a streak of growth that started back in April. The weird part? Toronto was actually one of the few regions that didn't see a drop. So while places like Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal are cooling off, the GTA is still holding steady, kind of like the last guest at a party that refuses to go home. On paper, it might sound like the market's stabilizing. Sales are still up about 5% year over year, and prices have only fallen a few points, around 4 to 5%. But the average home in the GTA still hovering near $1.06 million. And while the Bank of Canada's rate cuts are helping a bit, down to a 3-year low of 2.5%, it hasn't exactly unleashed a wave of affordability. Demand's pent up, supplies lagging, and the dream of owning a home still feels more like a cruel joke than a realistic goal. So, into that chaos walks Premier Doug Ford, promising to finally make homes affordable by cutting the fees that builders pay. The question is, will it actually work? Doug Ford's big idea is simple, or at least it sounds simple. Cut taxes and development fees, give builders more freedom, and watch housing become affordable again. Simple economics, right? Except it's housing. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board loves this plan. They've been begging for tax reform for years, calling Ontario's housing fees excessive. Their research shows that government taxes, land transfer costs, and development charges can pile up to 36% of a new home's price. That's roughly $370,000 added on top. Cutting those costs could finally make home ownership attainable again while keeping construction jobs alive and the market stable. The Ford government's housing strategy, through bills like More Homes Built Faster, promises to streamline approvals, reduce red tape, and lower development charges known as DCS. The idea, if builders save on fees, they'll pass those savings on to buyers. Ford's allies, like the Residential Construction Council of Ontario, RESCON, say this is exactly what the industry needs. RESCON's president Richard Lyle even called the move vital, arguing that planning delays and high taxes have been choking new home construction. Legislation also lets developers pay DCs later, at occupancy, not up front, and gives the province a stronger hand in local approvals. Basically, Queen's Park gets a fast-track lane, and city halls get fewer speed bumps. If you take Ford at his word, this is the grand fix. Lower fees, more houses, lower prices. But critics say that math doesn't add up. Not everyone's clapping for Ford's housing revolution. Because while developers might save millions, someone still has to pay for the roads, pipes, and parks that make those homes livable. Municipalities across Ontario say the plan effectively dumps the bill on them, or worse, on local taxpayers. Development charges fund essential infrastructure, sewers, community centers, even fire stations. Take those fees away, and suddenly cities are left holding the bag. Brampton's mayor called it a shell game. Mississauga's former mayor Bonnie Crombie said it robs Peter to pay Paul. In other words, Ford's plan might make developers happy, but not the people footing the tax bill. Then there's the environmental angle. Groups like the Council of Canadians argue Ford's agenda isn't really about affordability. It's about sprawl. By loosening protections on land use, critics say the government is opening farmland and even parts of the Greenbelt for development, while calling it housing reform. The Pointer, an investigative outlet, reported that many of Ford's housing bills have weakened environmental oversight, letting developers build sprawling subdivisions far from existing infrastructure. That kind of development drives up long-term costs from transit to water systems and does little for real affordability. Even the Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis, the group Ford often cites, has warned that cutting fees doesn't automatically make homes cheaper. Their 2024 report found that while taxes and fees make up about 36% of a home's price, 70% of those costs are fixed. Translation: when you reduce them, developers might just pocket the difference instead of lowering prices. So instead of a trickle-down discount, Ford's plan might just mean less money for cities, more profits for builders, and no real relief for buyers. It's becoming a showdown. One side says fee cuts will unlock supply, the other says they'll bankrupt communities. Both claim they're fighting for affordability. The question is, whose version of affordability are we talking about? Here's the thing. The truth about Ford's housing plan isn't as black and white as either side claims. Economists point out that reducing development charges can help boost housing supply, but only if the savings are tied to actual affordability requirements. Without those safeguards, there's nothing stopping developers from pocketing the discount and keeping prices high. Experts like Mike Moffat say the problem isn't that DCs exist. It's that they've become the least controversial way for cities to raise money. Municipalities rely on them because property tax hikes are political suicide. So when Ford cuts DCs, cities either lose funding or have to make it up somewhere else, usually through higher taxes or fewer services. It's also a matter of timing. Ontario's own More Homes Built Faster plan aims for 1.5 million new homes by 2031. But approvals, materials, and labor are still massive bottlenecks. Even if you cut fees, it doesn't magically make more skilled trades or construction materials appear. Then there's market logic. The data shows that when home prices fall but fees stay fixed, builders' profit margins vanish. That discourages new construction altogether. So ironically, cutting fees might not boost housing starts. It might just slow things down if the math doesn't work for builders. In short, the experts are saying Ford's plan could work if it's implemented strategically, monitored tightly, and balanced with other policies, like rental incentives, density targets, and affordable housing quotas. So maybe it's not about less government or more government. Maybe it's about the right kind of government intervention, one that balances builder incentives with public accountability. So here's where we land. Doug Ford says cutting fees will make homes affordable again. That if you make it cheaper for builders to build, they'll make it cheaper for you to buy. It's a comforting story. It sounds like common sense. But housing isn't that simple. Cities warn those same cuts could leave them billions short on infrastructure. Critics say it fuels sprawl and benefits developers more than first-time buyers. And the data from the Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis shows that even if you remove some taxes, the structural costs of building in Ontario remain sky high. Under Ford's watch, the province's affordability crisis hasn't eased. Construction targets are slipping, and average prices are still well beyond reach. So maybe the real question isn't, can cutting fees make homes cheaper? It's cheaper for who? For buyers, affordability is still a fantasy. For municipalities, the math doesn't work. And for builders, it's a windfall dressed up as reform. Experts say the only path forward is cooperation. Cities, provinces, and Ottawa working together to fund infrastructure and push smarter, denser growth, not just more sprawl. So, what do you think? Will cutting fees finally make your first home affordable? Or just someone else's more profitable?